Are you struggling with hair loss? Well, before you give up and start rocking that bald look, get yourself a box of Novaxidil. It's the only clinically proven triple action hair loss treatment on the market. It has 5% minoxidil, which is the gold standard for regrowth. But minoxidil alone will not prevent further loss. For that, Novaxidil uses DHT blocker ketoconazole with added nicotinamide, vitamin K, biotin, and collagen peptides. Basically, every single ingredient you could possibly think of in one product. So stop rubbing peppermint oil behind your ears and get something that works. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's Novaxidil.
All right, Serious and Silliness Outcasts. I have a return guest, and at this point, he is a friend of the show and a friend of mine, and he is making some big strides since we first had him on. Gabe Morales, how you doing?
I'm doing okay, John. Thank you for having me back on.
Of course, man. It's always a pleasure. So Gabe was a former prison guard, former prison therapist, author. Seems to be a damn genius when it comes to true crime, and I'm not exaggerating. And recently, you were going to be on a few Vice episodes. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I should be on Vice TV. They're doing series Gangs, United Gangs of America. It's called, and I will be on several episodes. Um, so that's kind of
How
cool.
did they get in touch with you? Was it your podcast? Because your podcast is Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians, and ever since I think we did our first interview about a year ago, it literally I don't know if it doubled or tripled in size. You're almost at 20,000 subscribers. I mean, it's blowing up. People love your podcast. Is that how they got to you, or they got you somehow other way?
I think they did see some of my videos and
Uh,
then asked me to comment on some of these different groups that I've covered in that series.
what kind of groups did they ask you to talk about?
Just got done doing today North Familia and Black Gorilla Family,
Yeah. Okay.
which I think we've talked about before here on
Yes.
this channel. And I'm going to be talking about some Aryan groups,
Mhm.
just a whole slew of uh, different gangs are going to cover this season. So I should be on at least half of those shows in horror part.
You got to let me know when it airs because I'm not going to miss it because those Vice episodes, Vice has gotten better. Like when it first came out, it was like, eh. Now that I have the documentaries, it's fantastic. Um, but you are an author. I've actually read, and interviewed you with the Aryan Brotherhood, the Mexican Mafia, the Black Guerrilla Family. You have several other books out there, and today and recently, actually, recently you've dove into the motorcycle clubs, the MC world, and the Italian Mafia a little bit. And the one I wanted to actually there were two that I wanted, but today I wanted to talk to you about the Bandidos Motorcycle Club because you did do a video on it. I watched it, and the reason why I was interested in the Bandidos Motorcycle Club is because I'm in the Northeast, and we never see Bandidos. The motorcycle clubs here, the two dominant ones are the Angels and the Pagans. And the truth of the matter is, it looks like in the last few years, the Pagans are dominating. The Angels don't have their clubhouse in on Third Street in the city anymore. They've moved into the boroughs and North Jersey, which was always Hell's Angels territory. I don't know what happened there, but I see them. I see mostly Pagans and Angels most of the time. Everybody saw the movie The Outlaws, about the Outlaws, the one with Tom Hardy that recently came out. It was based on the Outlaws. And the Mongols, Jesse Ventura was in them. But it seems like the Bandidos have this dominance. The Bandidos and the Vagos seem to have this dominance, but this more low profile, even lower than most, if that makes sense. I don't know why, or is it maybe just me because I don't see them here?
Well, the Bandidos have gone through periods where they've been high profile and low profile.
Hmm.
The Bandidos, as you stated, they're stronger out west, in particular in the states of Texas and Washington State, where
Hmm.
I'm from. They also were very, very strong. Um, they started off, Don Chambers was their first president down in Texas, but a guy named George Wiegers was president for a long time, and he was out of Bellingham, Washington. So I have some interesting stories about him.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so from what I understand, the Bandidos started in the mid '60s in Texas, and like you said, from a little bit that I know, they dominate in Texas and Washington, and but they're I think they're the second biggest motorcycle club in the world, right? behind the Angels? They have like
They're
20.
also very, yes, they're also very big in Europe, in other parts of the world. So all of these motorcycle gangs, and I have to be clear here, John, for some of your viewers, I don't really consider myself to be an outlaw motorcycle gang expert. Some people have said I am. I guess I know more than the average Joe.
Well, I don't
I
know
was
if you
always a
have.
low
I don't
rider.
know if you
I
have a
was
photo.
into low riders. So, that was my thing. My dad, however, he had a motorcycle.
Yeah.
He knew a lot of biker guys. My mom was a go-go dancer at a very famous tavern called the Embers, where a lot of bandidos hang out. So, and some of her friends were bikers. And so I knew bikers. I
Hmm.
knew biker clubs. I'd see them around the neighborhood, especially Bandidos, and some Gypsy Jokers, and a few Ghost Riders, a few other clubs. They're there in Washington State, and in California, of course, I bumped into some of the ones you mentioned: Vagos, Hell's Angels,
Yeah.
real big out there in California, Mongols, all those. So I know about them. I have a little knowledge about them, and I thought I'd share that. But I learned a lot while doing that series. I learned a lot by talking to a lot of these bikers and getting a lot of feedback from viewers.
Yeah. I'm just gonna give you your props, man. You see, I don't know if you have a photographic memory or whatever it is, but you are definitely an expert in the prison gangs because that was your background, right? You were a prison guard and a counselor, but you seem to go outside and touch on true crime in other ways. Like I said, the Italian mafia, the Mexican cartels, and now the MC's world. But the information that you could just come up with. It's just unbelievable. I can't do that. I got to sit here. I sat here for a half hour before I got on here trying to get my facts straight, just on the Bandidos. But so whatever it is about you that this gift you have, it's fascinating, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Okay, I know you're a friend at this point, but between the books, the podcast, and you being on Vice, I am not the only one that sees it. So I'm not going to
Well,
give you any
thank
more.
you, man. I appreciate it. I try. Yeah, I'm still, but I want to say, as I'm still learning. I don't know it all. I know
Yeah,
some things, and I try to share that knowledge with others. And some people seem to like it.
yeah,
Like you said, subscriptions are really going through the roof.
fantastic.
So I've hit on something that some people like. I find it interesting.
Yeah,
I have some experience, direct experience, and I also know a lot of people. That's one thing I can say is if I don't know, I bet you I know somebody who does. So I know a
yeah.
lot of people.
Well, you know what it is about, and then we'll jump right into the Banditos right after this. With YouTube is I'm pretty sure YouTube is the only uh social media app, if you want to call it that. It's the only social media uh, uh content stage, a platform that men go to dominate over women. All the other social media stuff, women dominate. Like women go to Instagram, women go to Reddit, women go to TikTok. But what men, and if you see, what you normally happens is the stuff that men are interested in blows up. So the true crime, the mafia, the motorcycle clubs, and of course that's why I interview the types of people that I interview, like other former mafia members, motorcycle club members, the adult entertainment industry, and because listen, that's what guys like. And when we were younger, if you remember on TV, like on Sunday, like on the History Channel, that's when they would put on all the mafia stuff, the biker stuff, because they knew the guys were home on Sunday afternoon, right? So it's kind
Mhm.
of like you hit your niche, but it's the perfect platform. YouTube is the perfect platform for that. All right,
Thank you.
Bandidos Motorcycle Club, 1966, Texas. Take it from there.
So Don Chambers, understand, was military. Like a lot of these biker guys aren't. They come back from the military, and they still, kind of gung ho and kind of rowdy, and you know, a lot of them like motorcycles while they're in the military. Some of them even before they got in the military, and he ended up deciding that, hey, I'm going to start this club. understand it was started in a bar. That's where a lot of these ideas are, probably having a few beers and,
Yeah.
he probably seen Marlon Brando,
Yeah.
and probably saw Easy Rider and, all the biker movies and decided, hey, let's, that sounds cool. It's something that attracts us as young men. And so he ended up forming this group called the Bandidos. And they chose a logo very similar to the Frito Bandito, which was real popular at that time.
Mhm.
Some people even say that he copied the Frito Bandito. However, others say that the Frito Bandito logo and commercials didn't come out till a year after. Well, I'm not so sure about that because see, I know people like in the, in the movie industry and Hollywood and stuff. And a lot of times they talk about these ideas around bars, a little small talk and stuff long before it actually becomes reality.
Right.
See what I'm saying? So I'm not so sure that somebody didn't stick that Frito Bandito idea in his head.
Right.
Regardless, whether it's folklore or whether there's any truth to that, there is some very similarities, big similarities. And he had a sword and he had a Mexican, fat Mexican with a sombrero pointing a gun.
Right.
That became their logo. It has since been revised. The Hells Angels, I remember when they revised their logo, these guys seem to always be in a competition battle with each other, these biker clubs.
Yeah.
Hey, we're expanding to this state. Okay, well, we need to expand into this state, that kind of thing. We revised our logo to make it look more cool, more up to date. Well, we're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And they're constantly in this kind of little battle um, for the minds and hearts of guys in that biker world.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let me know if I'm wrong. For a little bit that I know, back in the 60s, the Angels wouldn't let Hispanics in the club. Is that accurate? And then some of the members from the Bandidos were happy to join because they want to be part of a motorcycle club. Is that accurate?
Yes, in fact, when I did that series, quite a few people commented, well, the pagans, the outlaws, they've had Hispanic members for a long time. I don't believe initially. I've seen the early pictures, and maybe
Yeah.
there's some light-skinned Hispanics in there, but most of them are white dudes.
Yeah.
And a lot of them didn't even have colors. In fact, I talked to some of the pagans. They said, hey, originally they just had leather jackets and white T-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
the James Dean look. I mean, and that makes sense to me. Probably before they decided on what their logo was going to look like, the
Right.
Bandidos did the same thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the Hells Angels, and probably all of them. And yes, originally they were predominantly white groups.
Mm-hmm. So
The
the Bandidos form, and does this attract a tremendous amount of Hispanic uh, members?
Yeah, so what I think can happen, John, and this is, a lot of this happened before my time. I
Yeah.
mean, I was born in 1960, so the Hells Angels, they were all up and running a long time ago.
Right.
When the Banditos started, I was, just barely starting kindergarten,
Right. Right.
first grade. So, of course, I'm going off of what I've heard from many other people, and I
Okay.
tend to take stories from this person. This person said, "No, that never happened." This person said this happened, and kind of try to get a consensus.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I believe happened with a lot of these biker clubs, the big ones in particular, is a lot more exclusively white. But as they went to war with other clubs, they needed numbers. Why limit yourself to one race when some badass Mexican guy,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can take out four of the other guys?
Yeah.
Why not let him in? And I think they initially, in spite of maybe some of their racist beliefs, swastikas and that kind of stuff that they may have had, regalia that they may have had, they started recruiting outside of their race.
Mm-hmm.
And you also had a lot of Hispanics and sometimes Asians, other races that really didn't grow up in that environment. They grew up around whites,
Yeah.
middle class. A lot of their friends, they played baseball and football with. So they, really didn't pay attention to the race thing as much as the what is cool, what is the in thing, what do I like? I like motorcycles, you know. I like these guys. They can kick some ass.
Right.
You know, these guys are cool, you know. And so I think I think it evolved. A lot of this stuff doesn't happen overnight, but I think really that's when they loosened up the race requirements when they started going to war with some of these other clubs.
Yeah, the wars and the problems between motorcycle clubs, like it kind of baffles me a little bit. Back then I understood. Back then it was really like drug territory and so on and so forth and whatnot. But when you really look into the motorcycle club, they're all the same. They all want to ride motorcycles. They all go on
Yeah,
runs. They all dress the same. They all want to hang out with the boys, maybe get laid, drink, have a good time. I don't understand why it would be a problem.
yeah, yeah. In the same token, John, you know, the Mongols and Vagos, you look at the early pictures and see this is documented. Their first presidents and vice presidents and sergeant, they're all Mexicans. But as they grew and as they battled against the Hells Angels, they're like, hey, man, we ran out of Mexicans. There's a white guy over there that's cool. We like him. Hey, Cisco, come over here and join us, you know?
Yeah, basically it became if you had the balls to become one of us, you're okay. Because I have a good friend. There's a small 1% club in the Bronx called the Chingalings. And the Chingalings are majority of them are Puerto Rican. But I have a really good friend who's Italian, and he's been a member of the Chingalings for 20 years. And it was just he was tough enough and rough enough, and he was able to go through the prospecting period, and that was it. And they accepted him
Right.
as a brother.
He like Puerto Rican food? Yeah, you're in.
Who doesn't like Puerto Rican food? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
He likes rice and beans.
He's good. Yeah, he's got
he qualifies.
yeah, he likes rice and beans and he beats the shit out of people. It's great. Yeah.
That's right. We'll take them.
Let's talk about before we start diving into the history and how it expanded. Let's talk about the what's referred to as prospecting, because you can't just like decide that you want to become a member. It's a whole long process, right?
Right. You know, a lot of people have when they've talked to some of these biker guys, um, they have been asked, they told me they have been asked, you know, well, how do I join the Bandidos or the Hells Angels?
Mhm.
And their reply was, you don't join us. We ask you.
Yeah.
You don't come up to us. We're not looking for you. You're looking for us, kind of thing. You know, you need us more than we need you. And so they will um, start off as hang-arounds. And so just somebody who maybe gets introduced to somebody, and you know, they're always worried about undercover cops. They have been infiltrated many times.
Mhm.
So they're always wondering, you know, if this guy's a cop, and they will test them, you know, ask them questions. Hey man, so how long you been a cop? You know, and see what the guy's reaction is, right? Try to get them rattled.
Yeah.
And I've actually had some undercover cops. I know this because I've had undercover cops who actually infiltrated them, got asked that, and they said inside they were freaking out. But of course, they can't show that fear,
Right.
you know. So, but that's, you know, one of the ways they weed these individuals out. And they're also able to avoid infiltration a lot of times is to even get close to these guys. You might have to be hanging around for, you know, a couple of years.
Hmm. Yeah.
If you're working a case as a cop, a lot of times your bosses, they want you to arrest the guy tomorrow. You know, they don't want
Right.
2 years from now,
Yeah.
you might dig up some dirt on this guy.
Yeah.
So they're very, very guarded. And so who they trust and who they let into their world, in their circle. And most of these clubs are very small. You know, a lot of these clubs, these chapters or charters, as the Hells Angels say, you know, are only 6 to 8 members.
Hmm.
They're not real big. People think, you know, they see these videos, but that's multiple chapters and
Yeah.
charters
That's right.
together.
Yeah.
Most of them are small, and they'll insulate themselves from outsiders that way, and they spend a lot of their time together. You know, they may have 9 to 5 jobs and stuff, but they spend a lot of their free time together. And so they really consider each other brothers. They trust each other. In order to become a prospect, then they may tell a hang around, how would you like to prospect for us?
Mhm.
You know, And most, of course, will accept them on their offer. Some will say, you know what, that's okay, man. I like you. You're a friend, but we go no farther. And so you're okay when you do that. Okay, we'll just keep our distance from you, I'll say hi to you,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Um, you know, um, you're not going to be on our hit list because you said no.
Right.
But now when you prospect, now you're getting in deeper.
Right.
Now it's a little more commitment. Now you got to do some crazy stuff
Mm.
as a prospect. And it used to be in the old days, they'd make the guys, they'd pee on them and do all kinds of gross stuff, and
Yeah.
make
I've
them
heard
do
that.
some just really crude type of stuff and beat the crap out of them and make them crawl through mud and bark like a dog and just, it was really kind of
Like a hazing.
like hazing,
Yeah.
acts.
Yeah.
But they, as they evolved, it started to be more commitment. No, you got to go over there and key that cop's car. But
Mm.
brother, the cop's in it. Hey, you want to be a bandito? You want to be a Hell's Angel? That's what you got to do.
Yeah. Right. Right.
They're in the bar. See that rival biker over there? Go take his colors. But brother, there's like 4 or 5 of them over there. Hey,
Mm.
you got balls or what?
You're
We want to
right.
see what
Right.
you're made of.
They want. Yeah.
And and he might get his ass whooped, but see if he'll go over there and
Yeah.
fight that guy.
Yeah.
And so that these are the kind of things that guys on probation, probates, probationary status have to go through, and they might have to do that for a couple of years.
Mm.
Again, as an undercover cop, you know, you got now 4 or 5 years maybe into this thing,
Yeah.
and you're not even a member yet.
Yeah.
You don't even
It's
know
true.
really what's going on. You don't know squat.
Yeah.
And so now you become a full patch member. They usually make a big deal out of it, and you're no longer treated like dirt, like a lowest scum of the earth as you were on probation status. And now you're one of us.
Yeah.
I equate it kind of like the Marines. You're going through boot camp when you're on probation status.
Yeah.
Once you graduate, and you're one of us, you're one of the few, the proud.
Right.
Now you made the cut. You
Yeah.
made the cut. You're one of us.
I've interviewed Pee Wee, who was the former president of the Las Vegas chapter of the Hells Angels. You probably know him. He's been all over social media. He was on Demon's Row. I've interviewed Mooch, who was a national president of the Mongols.
Mongols.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My friend came on the show who was a Chingaling, and basically when they basically say is like from the information all three of them told me, and it was all very similar when it comes to prospecting. But basically you have to like have a friend of the club. Somebody has to vouch for you, even if you're a hang around. You can't hang out, right? So my close friend, he had a friend who was a Chingaling, and he's like, yeah, come hang out. My friend liked motorcycles, and yeah, come. Figured it'd be a good fit, and he'd get along, which he did. And like you said, it was 100% accurate. They come to you and they say, look, man, you're cool. You've been with us for, a year, 2 years, whatever. You want to prospect with us? And it's either yes or no. But once you say yes, you're on call 24/7. Like they can call you. None of them said, and they might be, they might be hiding it. They might not want to say it. None of them said anything about violence, but you're on call 24/7. Somebody's bike breaks down. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You get the call. You got to go help them. Things like that. You if they have to throw a party at the clubhouse, you either bartend or you're security. And if the next and they might there's no time limit. It's not like we're closing at 2 o'clock, right? They can go party all night because it's their clubhouse. And then if you got to go on a run the next day, and you're a prospect and you're on the run, you're in the back of the pack and you basically serving everybody else. So even if you didn't have any sleep, you still got to go. And you got to make sure you have everything that they need. So if you know if guys like Marlboro cigarettes, you got to have Marlboro cigarette, toothpicks, gum, um, any beef jerky. It's all got to be on you. And if a bike breaks down, you got to stay with the guy and help fix the bike or help so on and so forth. Some of them drive trucks behind them. If the bikes break down, they throw them in the truck. And my friend told me he basically didn't have a life for a year. For 1 year, he was at their beck and call until he became a full member. And they also, the one thing that Pee Wee said that they would mud check him, and that's basically a slang term for they'll see how tough you are. They'll just punch you in the face and see how you react. And he said that there was a time where he was bartending and one of the guys was talking shit to him, and they call him Pee Wee because he's 6'8" and 500 pounds, right, 400
Right.
pounds. And the guy punched him in the face, and he basically like body slammed him because he's a huge guy. And he said that happened twice, where they try to they see what you're made out of. I'm gonna assume the Bandidos is the same because it seems the three people that I've interviewed, the prospecting stage seems to be the same, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
it's all very similar. Yeah, like I said, probably the closest thing to put it would be hazing or going through Marine Corps boot camp.
right.
You go through Marine Corps boot camp, you got DIs screaming in your face, talking smack. Just basically verbally, and physically abusing you.
Yeah,
And you got to take it. You got to suck it up. See if you can. You got what it takes.
yeah, yeah,
To become one of them. And then once you're accepted after, as you said, is after being a prospect, you pass your probationary period. It's a it's a huge ceremony. It's a big deal.
yeah,
It's a really, really big deal. And they build it up where you had to earn that badge. They talk about it. You just know we don't give you a badge. You earn that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You know,
Now when the
you had
band,
to go through a lot of shit to get that.
oh yeah, and if they find somebody who just bought, because you could just buy patches online now and put them on your vest.
Yeah, they don't like that. Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
don't want to.
wearing it without. You could buy support gear like support 8-1,
Yeah,
but yeah, if they
even
see
that's
you wearing a
dangerous.
death head, that's
Yeah,
that's
even yeah,
reasons for getting your ass kicked.
yeah, even that's dangerous. Like if I have a support 8-1 shirt and I'm in like a pagans area, I'm still subject to getting my ass kicked. Right.
Yeah.
But so now the Bandidos form in Texas in '66. Did they come under any pressure from other motorcycle clubs? Did they try when they started expanding? Was there issues with the Angels or the Mongols or the Vago or anything like that?
Well, the Bandidos have beef with different clubs. Uh, I don't hear them beefing too much with the Hells Angels.
Mhm.
I believe that there's no Hells Angels that I know of in Texas, and there's no Bandidos in California. I believe they had an agreement going way back. Now, maybe one of your viewers can tell us exactly which leaders those was. Was it Sonny Barger? Was it George Christie? Who it was on the Hells Angels side. Was it Don Chambers or one of the other presidents? Who made that agreement? But I believe they had an agreement because it happened. One state out of Texas and one state out of California. And I think that's a big reason why they really haven't gone to war. Now, that there was a little change there, though, because Washington State, where I'm from, is Bandidos country,
Mhm.
especially Western Washington. The Hells Angels moved into Spokane in the early 90s, which is in Eastern Washington first.
Mhm.
I believe, even before that happened, there was a group called the Henchmen out of Montana that just rumored themselves to be switching over to Hells Angels. I believe that happened first.
Okay.
Your viewers can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that happened. And George Wiggers, who was then international president of the Bandidos out of Bellingham, Washington, then sent a entourage over to Montana to take the henchmen's colors and basically in their own clubhouse. And yeah, just basically took it over and threatened to, if they didn't bring all their colors there, to destroy them, that they would hurt them, possibly kill them.
Yeah.
One guy, I understand, got away, reported to the cops, and they arrested a bunch of bandits on that one. But I believe that happened first. And so they may have been a little leery after that went down
Mhm.
when the Hells Angels moved into Spokane and started a Nomads chapter. And a guy named Smiling Rick Fable was president of the Hells Angels at that time, and his vice president was Moldy Marvin Gilbert, who not only was Hells Angels but an Aryan Brotherhood member.
Ah.
So that was a big move then, very bold
Mhm.
move against the Bandidos. The Bandidos weren't strong in Spokane. I think they had some, maybe a sport club there, but didn't have any numbers there. They were very strong though in the Seattle Tacoma area, all up and down Washington State.
Mhm.
And then the Hells Angels moved into Seattle. They started moving over there I remember looking at the Hells Angels website, and they had the Space Needle, which is a symbol of Seattle.
Yeah.
Anybody knows Seattle?
Yeah.
Broken in half, and it was a red and white demon.
Really?
Obviously a Hells Angel, biker-liking guy, breaking the Space Needle in half. And so I told some of my biker friends, hey, I took the snapshot of the Hells Angels website. What's going on? They were surprised, I think, or at least
Really?
they acted surprised. Maybe they knew. Maybe they knew beforehand
And what what
this was
what,
going
what
down.
time period was this?
This is probably late '90s. So
Okay.
not too long after a few years after they moved into Spokane, they decided, hey, we're going to be active right in the heart of Washington State Bandidos
Hmm.
territory in Seattle, and they moved in there, and they've been there ever since. And Bandidos really didn't do much about it, which is really surprising to a lot of people. But
Especially back then in the
maybe they made a
90s. It was
deal. Okay,
still,
well, it's still cool. You could go to Washington, just stay out of Texas. Who knows what they
yeah,
told me.
yeah,
We'll make a compromise. Just make sure you don't go to Texas.
yeah.
Okay, we won't.
I think
I
it's
don't know.
I
Maybe
think it's
some of your viewers
calculated.
know this real story behind that one, but
Yeah, if anybody knows, leave a comment in the comment section. But it seems like it's calculated. So what I mean by that is, if they look, all presidents and all leaders are not the same. And I
Mhm.
think if you have one that is not as crazy or as strong or as stable, they're going to take advantage of it. And they're going to throw their weight around. The opposing club is going to throw their weight around. Where I think if you have a guy that is you can't mess with, this is going to turn into a bloody war.
Mhm.
They probably would step a little lighter than they
Yeah.
would. That would
Well,
be
it's
my
interesting.
good.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, John, because now that I think of it, I think George was starting to be on his way out at that time they moved over there.
Yeah.
So here, you got to kind of follow it along. So here is the henchman in Montana bragging about turning an HA.
Hmm.
The Bandidos, George sends a bunch of goons over there to mess them up. That all turns bad, but they do that. And then the Hells Angels then say, okay, well, we'll try another tactic. We'll just move into Spokane a
Right.
little closer before they moved into Seattle.
Hmm.
At that time, I believe George Wiggers was on his way out. And he was, like I said, the international president. During his reign, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, but
That's fine.
of what you're questioning, but during his reign, he claimed that he wanted to make the Bandidos more professional, and he did. You know, he said, "Hey, quit doing the stupid stuff and everything. We're about business." George was a businessman. I
Mm.
believe he was a part owner of a Hardy shop in Bellingham.
Okay. Yeah.
He was about making money. It's also interesting to me that Bellingham is just across from the Canadian border. I mean, literally, you could see it from
Okay.
Bellingham. At that time, BC Bud, if you remember BC Bud, that was the best marijuana in the world. It was on the cover of High Times like 10 out of
Really?
12 months
Yeah.
during the late 90s. See what I'm saying? And so, yeah, it was known that the Bandidos were bringing that BC Bud down,
Hmm.
you know? And so to me, it made sense like, wow, why did that happen? Because before all the presidents for the Bandidos were out of Texas. So George was making a lot of money for him,
Hmm.
but maybe a little bit too much money and it'll go in a little too fast. I understand he was recruiting a lot of youngsters, and a lot of the older Bandidos did not like that.
Hmm.
So they ended up forcing him out, and Jeff Pike took over as president of the Bandidos.
Oh.
But yeah, you're right. There's lows and highs. There's periods where they're high profile and they go low profile,
Yeah.
and so that's a good example of
Right.
that right there.
There was a changing of the guard. The Angels realized it and took it. You know what's so funny? It's so funny, Gabe, that leadership and hierarchy, whether it's organized crime, motorcycle clubs, or countries and politicians, it seems to be
Mm-hmm.
the same. Now, I don't want to get into politics, but what I mean by that is when Biden was in office, right? The Russia and Ukraine thing happened. Right? Then the Gaza and Israel, like they had no concern
Mm-hmm.
over Biden. But then when Trump comes in, they're like, maybe we should hold off on this one. This guy looks a little
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, that's why I call my show, Gangsters, Cops, and Politicians. And I've
Yeah.
had a lot of my friends say, is there really any difference? I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's right. Yeah,
hard to
that's right.
tell sometimes.
Yeah, it's the truth. It's true. It really is. So now in the 90s, um, you have the Angels expanding into Washington. It seems to go relatively smooth because for as you say, the Bandidos had this changing of the guard, and it was a weak point, so they were actually to go in. But from what you understand, there hasn't been any really problems between the Bandidos and Hell's Angels. They've been able to basically uh, live
I think they
together.
pretty much squashed that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't heard a lot of tension. They may show up at, Sturgis or something and, maybe pumping chests, that kind of thing when they cross paths. But yeah, you know, I think there's been a couple of incidents where the Hells Angels maybe surrounded them and, but the Banditos stood down. And there might be a couple instances where maybe, Banditos, puff their chests at Hells Angels when they had them outnumbered.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it seems like that hasn't been a major battle
Mm.
compared to some of the other groups,
Yeah.
like the HAs versus the Outlaws, or the Pagans versus the HAs,
Yeah.
or the Mongols versus the HAs, or pretty much HAs versus everybody.
That's the
You know,
truth because I know the pagans have teamed up with the Mongols basically to move into new territory and to, because they both have the angels as enemies. But so who seems to be the arch rival of the Bandidos? Who seems to be the club that they always have problems with?
well, right now, in most recent years, it's been the Cossacks,
Ah,
which
okay.
started after the Bandidos, but have been, the major thorn in their side. They had the big showdown at Waco. I showed it on my video.
Right.
So that seems to be the big one that everybody talks about. And I've had a lot of Cossacks and Bandidos comment on that particular incident. And a lot of the Bandidos said, hey, we're look like, not necessarily me, but the media made it look like, hey, we're the bullies and the Cossacks, got the worst of it, and they were victimized, in other words. But what a lot of people don't know is Cossacks were going around bullying a lot of lesser clubs or independent writers. They're saying, hey, there's always two sides to the story. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm saying I'm quite sure that was happening too. It wasn't just a one-way thing where you guys are the bad guys, all the time, and they're the good kids just trying to do all the Toys for Tot runs, during Christmas time.
Right. So why don't you go into that because that was a major shootout and whatnot between them and the Cossacks in Waco, and that was I think the early 2000s. It was all over the news. It was video footage. Why don't you go into that a little bit?
Right. Well, my understanding is there had been some incidents before that, and there usually is that lead up to the big one,
Mm.
but that the Cossacks were told they couldn't wear that Texas bottom rocker. That's what I understand. Very similar to the Hells Angels and Mongols battle. When Mongols started wearing that California rock, or it's okay to wear East LA or Pomona or West Covina, but you put California, no, Hells Angels run California.
Right.
And the Mongols said, no, who says? You know, and they defied them. Well, the same way the Cossacks defied the Bandidos, I understand, who was, definitely a majority club.
Hmm.
Of course, Cossacks don't consider themselves minor league. They consider themselves. They have quite a few chapters. You say, we're on par with the Bandidos. We're better than the Bandidos.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But regardless, I understand that Cossacks were told no, that was a no. They got together there at the Twin Peaks, and Banditos showed up in force, and there was a big gun battle. So, um, yeah, it was terrible what happened. And then, of course, innocent people always get caught up in these things.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It wouldn't be so bad if they just killed each other.
No, because it's
But
always,
but
it's always at a
innocence.
bike
Some
run
innocent.
or yeah, it's always at a bike
Right.
run or a public event or something like that. So like even someone like me who doesn't belong to a club, but I love riding Harley Davidsons. I have one. My brother has one, and if we were at this, event and these other guys, were there and it's supposed to be neutral and they decide, no, we're just going to attack,
Yeah.
people like me and my brother would get it as well as they just, They just,
Yeah.
at that
It's not
point, they
like they
just don't
took it out
care.
in the, way off in the woods. Let's,
Nah,
let's do this, like a man-to-man way,
no.
keep the women and children out of it. Although in Canada, I understand, five banditos got killed up there. I think the guy's name was Muscatine, was a former bandito trying to impress the HAs, took them out in the woods and did do them that way. So I like, whoa, that's pretty crazy too.
Yeah, I understand Canada is very, when it comes to organized crime and the motorcycle clubs, I understand they are very, very vicious up there.
Oh yeah, they're serious.
Yeah,
Europe too.
yeah. Oh yes, Europe too. Yeah. So let's go back to that in Waco. So what was it? Was it a run, a bike run, or what was it exactly?
I believe it was a Cossacks run. Yeah.
Okay.
In the, I don't believe it was a joint run like Sturgis or something like that.
Right, right.
I believe that, the Cossacks, and your viewers can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the Cossacks said, hey, we're going to meet up there at the Twin Peaks. I don't know if it was a break during the run. I don't know the exact details on that.
Mhm.
If it was at the end of the run, at the beginning of the run, in the middle of the run. I don't know that part, but I do know that the Bandidos crashed it, and yeah, and
How many people
not so much caught
died?
them slipping, because if you look at the video, Cossacks are armed too,
Oh
so
yeah.
it wasn't like they weren't ready for them. I'm sure
Well,
they felt something was coming or might be coming,
yeah, well, Texas,
and
everybody's
that was kind of like the big one, yeah. You know,
how how many people died in that shootout? I don't know if it was.
I know the Cossacks got the worst of it.
Yeah,
I want to say at least five, maybe even possibly eight.
yeah, and I know a lot
You
of people
know,
got hurt.
and more wounded, of course. Especially nowadays with the medical advancements. They keep a lot of people alive.
Yeah,
I'm sure that had they not had life support, first responders.
right.
Um, and some people, you always hear this too. I heard this about the HAs and the Mongols and stuff. You know, during the Laughlin run, that the cops instigated it. You always hear that too.
I've heard that too. Yes, I've heard
And
that too. Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about it before. I've had it on episodes on my show. I'm not, even though I'm former law enforcement, I'm not saying the cops are always innocent either, because they've done their share of dirt too.
Oh, sure.
And I know there's some officers who get their jollies off of instigating stuff.
Oh,
So I'm not saying that none of that happened either.
mhm.
But I didn't see any cops putting guns in hands of banditos and Cossacks and saying, 1, 2, 3, go.
Right, right,
I
right.
didn't see that either. So yeah, they need to take some responsibility and ownership for their roles too.
Yeah. If anybody did not see the video, I will put the video um, of that shootout in the description. So you can just click and go. It's pretty vicious. I don't know if I can get it unedited. It might be blurred or whatnot, but whatever I have available, I'll make sure it's in the description so you can go and see it. I mean, anybody who's a motorcycle enthusiast probably has seen the footage already, but anybody who is new to my channel or new to the motorcycle world, it's you could see what kind of vicious mentality goes into that world sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'll
Yeah,
make
you
sure
can
that.
tell the people were fighting for their lives.
Oh yeah,
They're
oh
like
yeah. It
kill or
was
be
no,
killed kind of
it was no
situation.
joke. Um, so now it's the early 2000s. That happens. How does the Banditos? Because you got to think, 66 to the 90s. It's relatively a short period of time. You're talking, maybe 25, 30 years. How did they expand so fast in so many different countries and so many different spots in the U.S.?
Well, a lot of that expansion did happen under George. Like I said, a lot of guys thought he was expanding too fast,
Ah,
too quick, bringing in too many youngsters. So then you get, the same thing has gone under Mongols, Doc Cavazos,
yeah.
you know, well, they spread like wildfire. They went from, being a few chapters into several hundred, and so, yeah, a lot of people were against his style,
Yeah.
his leadership.
Sure.
Jeff Pike then took over and went back to Texas. Jeff Pike had like $1 million mansion. If you've seen his arrests and stuff when they took him down, so they take another hit. So and it's not just Jeff Pike. They arrest a bunch of guys with him too. So
Mhm.
they go after the organization again. Um, the Bandidos um, usually meet at members' houses. That's my understanding. I've seen some of their meetings. I've seen when obviously they're having meetings. Hell's Angels have clubhouses. You know, very well advertised houses,
Yeah.
members' houses, HAs, well fortified. Bandidos seem to move theirs around more, and their places, and to throw off law enforcement probably and rivals because they're always worried about people doing drive-bys. You talked about the Hells Angels in New York. I understand the Pagans did a big drive-by on their clubhouse as soon as they moved. Yeah. So they always got to worry about that. They got to worry about the rivals. They got to worry about law enforcement. Those are the two main things they're usually worried about. And treachery from within. Probably bigger than anything is who's going to turn informant. So they're always worried about that. I think we had talked about it maybe on another show, maybe
sure.
not. About Hell's Angels have a saying, three can keep a secret if two are dead.
Yeah.
So they do take out a lot of their own.
Yeah.
They're always worried about somebody snitching on them, informing on them,
But
and sometimes these are guys that they consider friends or
they grew up
people
together.
thought they were good friends.
Yeah. In the United States, in the last, I would say, 20 years or so, between how strict the law enforcement and gang laws are now, it doesn't seem like I know the mafia has like a no-kill law, and they try to keep a very, very low profile for what they have left. But it doesn't seem like the MC world is as violent as it used to be. There were rumors that back in the 60s and 70s that if you wanted to be part of our club, you have to take out somebody from the opposing club. A lot of drug trafficking, methamphetamine, pimping prostitutes. It doesn't seem like that anymore. You still have to be tough. You still have to have a set of balls. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like the majority of the motorcycle club members today. I don't know about the Bandidos, but I do know about the Hells Angels and the Pagans are basically just guys that are hardworking guys and they want their male camaraderie. They like motorcycles. They're tough. They're not gonna they're not gonna not be tough. And then you have criminals sprinkled in here and there. And it seems like taking revenge isn't what it used to be because these guys with today's technology and today's law enforcement and today's forensics, going away for 20, 30 years is not uncommon. And I don't think it's as crazy as it was in the 1970s. With that being said, I don't think any organized crime was as nuts in the 1970s. Death was just and murder was just between the Mexican, Italians, motorcycle clubs. It seems to me that it's calmed down as much. They like I said, you don't mess with these guys, right? They're not you're not somebody you're gonna walk over. But it doesn't seem like they are the vicious killers and drug dealers and meth dealers that they used to be. Is that accurate, or am I just pushing up daisies?
No, I think that's an accurate assessment, John.
Okay.
They back in the day, I mean, their image. You look at the old pictures and stuff. They're greasy, they're nasty. Their colors are nasty. I mean,
Yeah.
they were just known for being rude and crude. And there was a movement among a lot of the outlaw biker clubs to clean up their image for less law enforcement scrutiny, for less bad publicity. Now with the internet and everything else, I mean, it's not just in the papers. I mean, it's everywhere. And they moved to it's more now less about being a tough guy as being smart, being a businessman. It's about making money.
Right.
That's why a lot of law enforcement said, they have moved from being outlaw motorcycle gangs to being organized crime. Now, I know a lot of your some of the bikers out there saying, wait a minute, that's not accurate, Morales. Well, I know some guys that haven't had a speeding ticket in 20 years. They are working 9-to-5 jobs, they're business owners and stuff. But if you go back to some of their history back in the 70s and stuff,
days.
they were selling pounds of dope.
Right.
They have just gotten smarter with their game. They maybe are not doing the stupid stuff anymore. getting in bar fights and that kind of stuff. Like you said, if somebody looks at them dirty, smacking them in their face or slamming them to the ground,
Yeah.
um, they're thinking twice now about their activities.
Yeah.
You know. And so, yeah, no, I think your assessment is accurate. I wouldn't call them so much because they're still capable
Right.
of killing somebody or hurting somebody. Is just now they're holding back a little bit and making sure that it's really worth it, that they really have to,
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And so most of them are like, you know what, I'll let it go, you know, I'll go make money, tomorrow and laugh at that guy, while he's the one doing time,
Yeah,
you
the
know.
days of firebombing somebody else's club, I think, is over and done with. I don't think we're gonna, we don't really see that much anymore. You also don't see, which is really strange to me because there were, and I've asked this to all the other guys I've interviewed, Mooch and Pee Wee. I didn't ask my friend. Um, uh, his name is Tommy. Actually, I didn't ask him, but I should have. There's this whole movement on social media for young men that are moving toward being more conservative. They're moving toward more being more masculine. There's plenty of podcasts that you try to teach young men how to go back to masculinity, and you could see the movement. It's happening, right? How to deal with women, how to now how to make money instead of just following, right, just following the rules and regulations and so on and so forth, getting away from this whole thing about toxic masculinity. Well, you would think that motorcycle clubs would be a spot where these young guys would want to go to. I mean, if any group of people still have solid holding on masculinity, it's motorcycle clubs, right? I mean, there's male camaraderie,
Mhm.
motorcycles, drinking, chasing women, having a good time, and having each other's back. But you don't see young guys getting into this. And what I mean here, I'm talking 18, 19, 20, 21. You don't see that. You see older guys like my age that want to be involved in their late 30s into the 40s and so on and so forth. Have you noticed that, or is this something that
Well, I think you kind of got two groups there, John. You do
okay.
have some of the guys who maybe become more mature. They're not a quote unquote punk anymore,
Mhm.
and they want to hang around, other solid guys who don't act that way either, act
Right.
stupid. Um, but you have, I tell people a lot of times that I believe there's something called the Sons of Anarchy syndrome. And when that show came on, all of a sudden everybody
I
wanted
really
to
want to, yeah.
drive a Harley. Everybody wanted to look the part of the biker, whether they joined a club or not.
Yeah.
And then they had the Mayans. So I think there is a lot of young people who are attracted to that lifestyle, and some of the older members have had to make that adjustment because, for instance, like with the Mongols, I remember under Doc Cavazos, they told me some of these guys didn't even own a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that I
and
mean,
he
in
was
his
making
in
the
his
Mongols
defense, he
members.
was
These guys
using
are
them more like
lowriders.
the Angels, right?
Yeah, gang members and stuff. Yeah, they
Yeah.
they didn't even know how to ride one,
Yeah. Yeah.
let
Yeah.
alone own one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think there's kind of different things going on at the same time. If that makes
Okay.
sense.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Because yeah, when that happened, I think that was the early 2000s, right? And he was the leader of the Mongols, and he was in a war with the Angels, and he was recruiting basically anybody who had a set of balls, and just threw a vest on them. And they didn't even ride motorcycles, but he needed the numbers to
Yeah.
win the
Yeah,
war.
pissed off the Mexican mafia doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, recruiting gang
Did he
members.
really?
Like, wait a minute, those are our guys. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Mexican
unbelievable.
mafia said, yeah, we're going to tax you just like a street gang then if you're going to be recruiting our guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy days. But I mean now in like the 2020s, and one of the response that I got from Mooch and Pee Wee, was they agreed with me, but the problem was the younger generation have like TikTok brain. They don't want to put the time in. They don't want to prospect for 2, 3 years or a
Mhm.
year
Yeah,
or
they
whatever
want to
it
be on
takes.
their video games.
Right. They'll do it if it's if it lasts a week,
I'll
and
ride a motorcycle on the on the
yeah,
screen. Yeah.
yeah, and say they want instant gratification, and that's not what these clubs are about. They weed out who is the best person for the job, and the young generation, millennials, Gen Z, and whatnot. Well, later millennials anyway. They can't do that. They don't mentally. They're just not prepared for something like that. you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. You know, you hit it right on the button there.
Yeah.
Instant gratification. I see that so much more with young people. Not that it probably wasn't around when we were growing up,
It's
but
10 times
I
worse
think
now.
it's a lot stronger. The influence of the media
Yes.
is much stronger with these kids
Yes.
today
Social
growing
media.
up. It's
Absolutely.
just like yeah, and you know, even communications, a lot of them are experts you know, on the internet and you know with technology, but they don't know how to talk. You know, they don't know how to have a man-to-man talk.
The God's honest truth. I can't, I can't, I can't stress that fact enough. I,
Mhm.
I, I hire people to help me with my channel. Like I don't do my own editing. Okay, I hire, and usually they're young college kids or right after college. And I'll advertise it. I'll put it on Facebook or Craigslist or whatnot, and I'll have a million people DM me or message me and whatnot. I'll say, okay, here's my number, give me a call, and they barely could speak over the phone, and they basically go, I could do the job. Okay, what's your experience? And it's like pulling teeth. It's unbelievable,
Mhm.
right? And what happens is the first
Yeah,
person that has a decent personality, I hire. That's he might
yeah,
not he might not be as good, but yeah, it's
yeah.
I think
But yeah, he's trainable though. You know what I mean? Yeah,
yeah,
has that that drive.
right.
Yeah, yeah. If
Yeah.
you don't have that drive to even engage in a discussion, no, just text them. Text them. You know, it's
Yeah.
so impersonal.
Yeah.
You
No,
know, I mean, sometimes you got to do that, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, the guy's right there.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
talk to him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable. So yeah, I think there's a part of that. And I can't tell you also how many times people ask me about my podcast, a younger crowd, guys in their 20s and 30s, and they don't know about motorcycle clubs. They don't even know the names. I'll say, you ever heard of the Hells Angels? And I'm like, no, I never heard of. You
Mhm.
never heard of the Pagans or the Hell? No clue. No clue about motorcycle clubs. They know the Bloods, the Crips, things like that. Of course, everybody heard about the Mexican drug cartels, but for some reason, the younger crowd doesn't know much about motorcycle clubs, and I just think like I said, it's strange because why I believe that it's strange is because young white kids get the brunt of toxic masculinity. You have ADHD. You can't get into fights, and they're kind of groomed to be this like weak dude, if that were what that would be, right?
Yeah.
And you would think, but now you're seeing this movement. You're seeing this movement on social media. You're seeing this movement on college campuses where they're going more conservative, where they want to be more masculine, where they take UFC classes and take boxing just to get into their masculine role again. And you would think that an MC culture, which is dominated by Caucasian and whites, would be the perfect spot for them, but it's not taken off, and it baffles me because even like right,
Yeah, I think some of it's a generation gap, but you
yeah,
got me thinking there too, John. You know, um, I remember when ninja bikes would get laughed at. I mean, the old bikers, you know, they
oh
call
yeah,
them rice rockets and stuff. Like now, though, they're okay with sports clubs. Maybe not being a Bandidos club,
right,
but Two Wheel Faction is a Bandidos support club that is a sports bike club. You
ah,
know, you have a lot of so that seems to be where the growth with the younger one is.
right, right,
Younger
right, right,
ones is with that sports bike, and I don't remember growing up seeing sports bikes clubs. You know, I don't even remember seeing sports bikes. So
yeah,
that kind of was an evolution. Then you start seeing the getting laughed at. You
right,
know, and then
and
it's
then
kind of like the Hondas.
inevitably an
I remember when
acceptance.
Hondas came out in the late 70s, people were like, "Psh, you got a lawnmower? I mean,
Yeah,
you'd be the laughing
yeah,
stock
yeah,
of the block.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Where's your Chevy Camaro at?
yeah, right, right.
Where's your Trans Am?
Now they
You know,
dominate.
yeah,
They dominate.
now people aren't laughing anymore. Yeah, they're like, oh,
And
that's a good vehicle.
the motorcycles are coming out of the shop, 200 horsepower stock, the Suzuki Hayabusa and the Honda CBR 1000 double. It's insane. But where do you see the Bandidos going in the future? And where do you see motorcycle clubs in general? What do you think their direction is going to be in the future? Like once we get into 2030s and whatnot.
I see them expanding further, maybe slower than they have in the past. They've seen, rapid expansion usually, you know, low quality. you know, recruits. I think they're going to continue to expand into other countries.
Mhm.
I remember, you talked about Pee Wee. I believe on his back he had, red and white worldwide. I've seen, Hell's Angels, California, and different other countries, Canada or whatever.
Mhm.
But I believe his backpack said worldwide.
Yeah.
So Hell's Angels taking over the world, and I believe that a lot of them are going to continue spreading to other countries. Um, and as the world changes, that's going to become, a factor probably in a lot of those countries. It certainly is here in the United States. I think they're going to remain a factor here. They're going to remain a factor in Canada. They're going to increase greatly in Latin America. It's not just going to be Bagos and Mongos anymore. I think
Mhm.
they're all going to move in there more. Um, and it's going to evolve probably. It's
Mhm.
going to evolve. But yeah, I think biker clubs are here to stay.
Yeah.
Whether the one percenters or not. Um, that's it's a culture, and some people are going to learn it, some people are going to love it, some people are going to leave it. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I don't see them going anywhere. Look what they've been through since what's I think the earliest club is the Outlaws from the 1930s or something like that. They're a staple in American society, and they'll adjust with whatever however society adjusts. Okay, because it's been that way with them, and they don't go away. And you know myself, I see them. If you're not aware of them, you're not going to pay attention. But I see pagans and Hell's Angels all over New York and New Jersey and whatnot. They're here and they're not going anywhere. And I'm sure it's the same for the Bandidos in Texas and Washington and other states, right? Yeah, I agree. I think they're just going to evolve and just keep it and keep moving. But we'll see. You know, I would like to see how the prospecting comes along because I would think that the majority of the people quit before.
Right. Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
think the
eventually.
majority of
Just
the
like
people.
prison gangs are most gangs. Yeah, most groups. But people eventually drop out for one reason or another,
Yeah,
or pushed out, violating the rules, or
yeah,
don't make the cut, early on.
yeah.
uh but no, yeah, it's here to stay. I think you're correct. And yeah, it's you know um not again, not every biker is a criminal, although there are some bikers that are criminals.
Yeah.
Not every cop is a criminal, although there are some cops that are criminals.
Oh yeah.
Not every politician is a crook. Oh yeah, where? No. That was a joke, John.
Yeah. You could have fooled me. Ain't that the
How'd you go
truth?
in there?
Unbelievable. All right, Gabe. Listen, all the respect and love in the world. You got to keep me posted on when that. I will text you when that Vice episode comes out because I definitely want to see it.
All right.
I
All
will.
right.
I will
Thank you
put
for
your
having me
book.
on again.
Absolutely. You'll be on again, definitely. I will put your books that you've done in the description so that people could just click and go buy them. Go and buy them. They're fascinating. I'm telling you, the Aryan Brotherhood, the Mexican Mafia, the Black Guerrilla, fantastic reads. I've read all three, tremendous reads. Go and take a look for yourself and buy them. They're on Amazon. I'll put the links in. And Gabe, again, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you coming on.
You're welcome, brother. Take care.
All right, later.